This is the video tutorial of how to make the masks from our Dolly Mask Kits. So there are two masks that you can make. You can make one with a filter and one without a filter, and this tutorial is how to make the mask without a filter. Okay, so here goes. So first thing to do is make sure you've got right sides together. It's not very obvious on this cloth. So you'll put the right sides on the inside, so right sides together, so the wrong side will be on the outside. And what we're going to do first is straight stitch here, 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 then stop, and then straight stitch along here, 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 and we're going to leave an opening here and here, and then we're going to bag it out. So I'm going to just pin this together first of all, and then we're going to go and sew this up. Brill! So here we are at the sewing machine, and I've threaded up with my red thread. Our seam allowance for the mask is 6mm, so that's kind of like the edge of the foot here on the edge of your fabric, so it should sort of line up like that. Make sure you back stitch when you start sewing, because that little section there is going to be where we leave the hole to bag the whole thing out. So I'm just going to sew along here. When we come to the corner, don't forget to turn the corner. You need to make sure your needle is down before you lift the foot up to turn that round. My machine does it automatically, but you might want to turn your hand wheel and turn it until the needle is down in the material before you lift it up and turn the corner. And now we're going straight along this long edge here. And again, coming up to that corner. Make sure when you turn the corner, just double check before you start sewing. That's why it's good to have this pivot with the needle down, that you can pivot round, check you've still got your 6mm seam allowance there. If you haven't, you can just by hand just do one more stitch until you get the right seam allowance. The important thing is not to go over the corner, because we're going to cut off the excess fabric at the corner so that when we bag it out, we've got a nice neat corner there. So away we go, straight down this short edge. And we're going to stop here because we've come to the other opening on the other side, so I'm going to back stitch as well when I get to that. Cut our threads, and now we're going to do the exact same thing round the other side. Here's my gap. There it is. So I'm going to just bag the whole thing out until it's right side on the outside. Just going to get my finger and poke out the corners there, starting to take shape. And there we go, nearly there. Next thing is we're going to top stitch this edge that we've just stitched, just to make it a slightly stronger edge. So to help me there, just rub the fabric so you get the seam right out, so it's right on the edge. Okay, just give it a little rub between your fingers until you get that seam right at the top, and then so it stays. I'm just putting a pin in before it bounces back. You can press it if you want at this point. Either way, we just want to make sure that that seam is right on the edge there. So I'm going all the way around here. Keep that out. So you can see here how it's sort of wanting to sort of spring back in. So I'm going to rub that, pull out the seam so it's right on the edge. Pin it to keep it there. And then I'm going to go around the whole thing and top stitch. So the top stitching should be about 2 millimeters away from the edge. So what I'm looking at here through the foot of my sewing machine here, I can see the edge of the fabric, the actual stitch. As I start stitching, you'll begin to see how close this is. Again, when you get to the corner, needle down, and then you can turn round. Can you see how close that is from the edge? And again, this is really just to give it some extra strength and also to keep it nice and flat. This bit here is the bit that's going to be around the top of your nose or under your chin. So I'm going to carry on, and then I'm going to do the same thing around the other side. So this is the origami bit. So we're going to get the stitched edges and we're going to fold them right here, still basically where the opening starts and finishes. So we're going to fold that over like that, first side, and then I'm going to top stitch along that fold about 3 millimeters in from the edge. Kind of creates the structure of the mask. So you're basically stitching through about 4 layers at this point. There we go. And then I'm going to fold this one over as well. I'm actually going to take this one away because I don't want to end up stitching this down at the same time. So I'm going to open that out, and what we've got here is this fold, a bit of top stitching here. So that's also going to fold in exactly the same place. So we've opened that one out, I've folded that one over, and I'm going to do the same thing and stitch along there. We are so nearly there. So this is the right side with the top stitching on the outside. This is the inside, so this is the face, this side that will be facing your face. So fold those back in on themselves. There might be a bit awkward here because that won't entirely fit, but that doesn't matter. So we've got this. We're going to create the place where the tie will go through. So this is a double fold. I think we've allowed about 1 centimetre per fold. So 1 and 2. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. This one will be, the way I'm showing you now, is what you can do to thread your ties through afterwards. Okay. So we're literally just going to fold that twice over and sew on the edge of that double fold to leave enough room to thread in your tie. Your machine might not like this bit, so what I do once I've started sewing, my mum taught me this, is use these threads to sort of almost kind of pull through the fabric till it gets started and goes through the machine, because you're dealing with about quite a few layers of fabric here. So going to go all the way down to the bottom, back stitch there. Okay, now that has left us a little channel here to thread the tie if we're going to do it that way. On the other side, while I'm here, I'm just going to show you, and I'm always looking for shortcuts, and this is me trying to speed things up here. I've got my tie here. I know how long I want it to go sort of around my ear, so I'm going to kind of sew it in as I go. So I'm going to fold in there and fold in here. This is really fiddly. Sorry if it's looking a bit fiddly. Give me a moment, bear with. So I've got my first fold there, second fold there. I'm just going to get it under the machine before it all just pops out. So again, there's a lot of fabric here and your machine might complain a little bit, but use those, once you've started sewing, you can use these threads to sort of help it through the machine. Now, once you've got started here, don't worry if this is all popped out. You can just readjust it as you go along. It's really difficult to try and get it all in place and for it to stay there. So now I'm ready to sew down the whole thing to the bottom. Now what I've done here, because I've got 2 loose ends inside that here, I'm just going to put an extra row of stitches right down the middle, which is going to hold those 2 loose ends in place. There you go. So they're not going to fall out. As I say, there's various ways of doing these ties. There we go. Cut off all the threads. So that's it sewn in already, and this one we're going to need to thread that through. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So I've gone and got myself one of these really massive needles that sometimes you can use with knitting when you're sewing in your loose ends with the wool. So quite a big hole there, and I've threaded through the tie and I've pushed that through the channel there and out it comes. And then depending on how long you've cut this, you can then tie those together. So if you've gone for the sort of the longer pieces that go around the back of the head, then will be ready to tie. So that's actually just slid through that channel there. So you're going to take these diagonal bits here. This is the corner that we sewed before, and that's going to fold back here. I'm going to pick out the underneath layer as well and open this out like so, and then literally just top stitch to hold those open. So you'll have 2 rows of stitching. This is where we made the channel, this is where we've done the top stitch, and on this side again I'm going to open this out like this and just top stitch those flaps so they're flat. On this side we've got the 3 rows of stitching. This is where we stitch down the loose ends of the tie, and this is where we stitch the channel, and that's our top stitching there. And there we have our finished mask. Easy.